PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. In a moment, I'm going to show you how to tackle the Rossolimo variation. So that's e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b5. I know a lot of people have contacted me and said, yeah, I've got a problem with this one. What do I do? Well, you could do worse than follow my recommendation in my Chessable course, the Anti-Sicilians for Black. And coincidentally, all my Chessable courses are on sale at the moment. So if you're interested in the Sicilian Kalashnikov for Black, my Anti-Sicilians for Black, or Auf Deutsch, the Anti-Sizilianer für Schwarz. And so I got a couple of other courses there. How good is your chess, for example. Then they are on sale at the moment. I'll put the links down below. Now, my recommendations, the Kalashnikov and these anti-Sicilian variations, are based on my tournament play over years and years. So I've got every confidence in them. But don't listen to me. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. And we're going to have a look at a game that was sent to me just a couple of weeks ago. So I've received another very nice message from Marharyta Khrapko. You might recall she sent me one of her victories in the Kalashnikov variation, and I did a video on that. She says, by the way, I listened to your advice on the Rossolimo system. Good stuff. In the Swiss Championship, I played it and I beat Elena Sedina with 3 knight f6. That was my recommendation. I acquired your Anti-Sicilians course one day before the game and then successfully applied it. Oh, what more can I say? That sounds fantastic. So let's have a look at this game. So it's Elena Sedina, who's an international master, against Marharyta Khrapko, played in the Swiss Individual Championship for Women 2024, in fact, in mid-July. The knight attacks the pawn. That forces white to react, and Sedina played knight c3. That's the most common move, bringing out a piece and protecting the e-pawn. So notice now that white is unable to play in the most dangerous way. That's with c3 and d4, building up a strong centre. So black hastens to develop the kingside pieces and bring the king to safety. White plays e5. So really, that can be the only drawback of bringing the knight out so early. The knight gets pushed around a bit, but actually, as we're going to see, that doesn't matter so much. So the e-pawn is attacked, so therefore white exchanges on c6, and we recapture with the d-pawn. That's important because we want to be able to bring this bishop out at some point. h3, the knight gets pushed back, but as we're going to see, it's not a problem that the knight is here because it's going to spin round into that beautiful d4 square. And this is one of the main lines. Now white has a choice between kingside castling or queenside castling. Sedina plays in the most solid way, kingside castling, and black gets the king to safety as well. So this is basically running along one of the main lines. The knight uses the space to attack c5 and then bishop f4. Now here is a very important maneuver, knight f5, bringing the knight to this wonderful outpost on d4. This is so typical of this variation. Notice that black is not developing that queen's bishop yet. We don't know exactly where it's going to be best. It might end up on the long diagonal. It might end up on a6. It might come out on e6 or f5. First of all, we get the knight to the outpost, and then it's going to be easier to determine later on where that bishop belongs. Now white has a dilemma. What do you do about that beautiful horsey in the middle? well, you have to get rid of it. So Sedina exchanges on d4. Now you could play pawn takes here and straighten out the pawns, and then the bishop will probably belong on the long diagonal. But I prefer Marharyta's move, queen takes d4, because this gives black potentially some play on the d file. And, well, it hits a few things as well in this position. Therefore, queen c3, so that saves the e-pawn, and of course the b2 pawn is covered. Well, one could exchange straight away, but I like Marharyta's move, rook d8. I think black can be very satisfied with the outcome of the opening. There's potential play on the d-file, and black has two bishops. They're not very impressive at the moment, but just you wait. There's always potential with bishops. I'm reminded of the legendary Soviet grandmaster Eddie Gufeld and his famous dictum: even the worst bishop in the world is better than the best knight. Now, he was prone to exaggeration, of course, but I get the point that he was making. I'm a believer in the bishops. So rook d8 just played. Good move, supporting the queen. Rook e1, so there's potentially a threat against this pawn. Bishop f5, the bishop develops. You could put the bishop on e6 as well. It's also fine. Bishop g5, attacking the e-pawn, which is defended. And now a4. White very often plays a4 in this variation. I mean, it could be blocked with the a-pawn, but actually there's no need to. Because very often that pawn move, well, can either be ignored or perhaps black can even push with b5. Well, let's see what happens. In this position, actually, it's possible for black to take on e5. This results in a good position. Gets a little bit messy after knight takes, but black can get away with this. Let's just have a quick look at this. Now, we're going to be able to get one of the rooks back, so material will be level. But black is better here. Yeah, it's even material, but with the rook and the bishop, and black is going to be able to lever open the position with c4. Black is definitely better there. So, a missed opportunity. But in fact, the way Marharyta plays it is also very nice. The bishop goes back. An exchange on c3 and g5. Yeah, we can't take straight away because of bishop takes. So that's check, and it opens up the rook towards the bishop. That is obviously better for white. Pawn up. So that's why g5 is a good move. I like this move a lot, and very typical of this variation. Again, I've seen this in other positions where the g-pawn claims some space on the king side and kind of isolates that pawn a little bit because, well, white in fact did play f4 here to protect that e-pawn, but, well, that has consequences as well. So, whoops, that was unfortunate. Would you believe it? One of my bookcases over there has just collapsed. Not that one. Odds on that one was going to go first. But so yes, I've just had a bookcase calamity over there. Never mind. I'll sort that out in a second. Anyway, back to this game. c4. Love this move. Black takes the initiative. So now these bishops are going to fly. Opens up. The d-file opens up the diagonal for the bishop. Now, not bishop takes pawn straight away, but rook d4. So this is the issue. This is very nice. The bishop is defended, but bishop takes c2. So that little exchange has left black with a better position. This pawn is vulnerable. This pawn is also potentially weak as well, and the rooks, you know, look good on the d-file. So black has the advantage. Now white played a5. Well, there's a threat to take here. So, well, a pragmatic move, pawn takes pawn. Rook takes, yes, these pawns are split, but black now has a healthy extra pawn. And that one is potentially a target. Rook b4, yep, there we go. Rook f2 hits this bishop. Bishop b3. And bishop takes a7. Rook b7, so this basically just simplifies. Threat here, so bishop b6, an exchange on a5, and bishop takes e5. Well, there we are. The bishops are flying, and black has a healthy extra pawn. And it's a nice center pawn as well. That means once these pawns start to advance, then black is controlling the center. So I would say this is technically a winning position for black. But there's a long way to go. It's still a little bit messy. Rook d2, c5, yeah, nice to claim this square. Perhaps the bishop will sink itself here. Knight e2, bishop d6, that just kind of cements things here, nicely protected. And f5, so time to start pushing pawns. And king f7, the king just advances, just ready to support these pawns. Very nice. Now Marharyta plays a very pragmatic move here. She was obviously worried about this knight spinning around to e5, so she played c4. I mean, I think I would probably want to keep that bishop, but c4 is, I think it's a good move. It also, the other thing is, I mean, even if this isn't taken, then the bishop is kind of shut out of play for a bit. So yeah, I would probably want to bring it back into play like this. But check. Instead, well, the bishop could move back at some stage anyway. But here, Sedina blunders. She plays bishop d4. That's a mistake because of this pin. And, well, things go from bad to worse. This is move 38. I'm guessing that both players were in time pressure here because some tactics were overlooked. So here, this is simply winning for black. And black takes here with a winning advantage. But bishop d6 played instead. So we get treated to a display of the two bishops instead. And yeah, I mean, black, of course, still holds the advantage here with an extra pawn and these bishops. e5. Well, it looks pretty good. Rook b7. Of course, if that's taken, then the king can step up. Rook d2, f4. So that pushes the king backwards. Rook takes. Rook takes. Little simplification, but it means that black is crashing through. And the king has problems. These squares are covered, so that means the king has to step back. And this looks like black is winning. Rook b3. Yeah, that pushes the knight to the side. And bishop d5. I mean, there are some inaccuracies around here, but I don't want to emphasize them somehow because, you know, basically white is struggling in this position. And yeah, one can point to various moves, but in the end, I think justice was done. You know, black never let the advantage slip. And finally, we reach this endgame where, well, Marharyta has achieved a winning position. So this pawn is one step from queening. There was some shuffling going on here. The king is coming up the board. rook h1, and there was a check. And this really is a winning position. There is no escape for white here. Basically, that knight is just too passive, and the king can be just forced back. There's no defense now. The game finished like this. Well, in fact, white lost on time in this position, but it is completely lost. Let's just see how black could finish here. King d3, knight e2, and king d2. And all black needs to do is force that bishop away. And in fact, black can win with a tactic here, and king takes e2 and the pawn queens. Well, congratulations to Marharyta. I thought that was somehow a very logical game. So just a few things. Let me just recap. Knight f6, that's my recipe against the Rossolimo. And it worked out absolutely perfectly in this game. So typical position here, the knight reaches the outpost. Once the knight reaches here, I feel that black has basically equalised the position. And indeed, Marharyta reached an endgame where, I mean, I feel that black has more potential than white in this position, because if the position opens, as it did, then the bishops look really good. And this was a key moment, c4. Again, so typical, with black breaking open the position for the bishops and the rook. And then, yeah, well, a pawn was won, and finally that was a winning position. But I think definitely justice was done in that game. If you want more details of this variation against the Rossolimo, then do check out my Anti-Sicilians course. As I said, all my chessboard courses are on sale at the moment, till the end of August actually. So Anti-Sicilians course, the even in German as well. Also die Antisizilianer für Schwarz finden Sie auf Deutsch auch. There's also the Kalashnikov course, and my 2 courses on how good is your chess if you want some test games to improve your strategy as well. So there we go. I'll put the link down there somewhere. Thanks for watching.